on this episode of In the Rack podcast.
But I knew that I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to be able to give my patients, or my clients, now I call them, the time that they needed, to get better. I wanted them to be able to have the time in the evaluation to tell me what was really going on with them and how they were, doing, and, how long.
What you got?
Welcome to In the Rack podcast, where we provide you with a practical framework for breaking PRs in all facets of health and wellness. We are just a couple of bros giving you the simple hows in a world of complex whats. No filters, no scripts, no rules, just straight talk.
Talk to him.
Now, let's get into the rack with your hosts, Dr. Chad and Dr. Nick.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of In the Rack podcast. I'm your host, Chad, and with me is my co-host and fellow physical therapist, Nick. Today, we have another guest on the podcast today. Her name is Kathleen. Is it Beede?
Beede.
Beede.
Yeah.
You were wrong. You said Beede.
I said I wasn't sure.
It's all right.
I'm just kidding. I always ask the
My
last names
goodness.
because we never know. Man, I was like going on a smooth roll there.
You were, man.
Yeah,
You
but that's okay. Beede. So Kathleen
Beede.
Beede owns her own physical therapy clinic in Dover, New Hampshire. It's called Eagle Physical Therapy, but it's holistic and performance.
Correct.
As well. Yeah. So she does a lot of holistic training as well, which is like an approach that we take very seriously here too at Perform Physical Therapy. So I feel like our core values are pretty much well aligned. So we're going to have some great conversation today. So I know we're probably going to dive down some rabbit holes. Nick was saying off air that, hey, listen, conspiracy theories are totally in
fair game.
Fair game. This could get a little weedy, but we'll see. I'll try to bring everybody back in. That's my
weedy.
job.
Okay, we could talk about weeds.
So I'm very good at reeling Nick back in. So I will make sure to stay on top of him about that. So, hey, Kathleen, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep. So I am from the Midwest. I think that's important to say because I'm like friendly and open kind of person. Went to school. So grew up in Missouri, Illinois. Went to school in Texas for marine biology, actually, to start. I have a degree in marine biology. And then decided that wasn't really where I felt like I was going to best serve humanity, as well as make any money. just a little bit. I mean, yeah, marine biology is like super low paying. So went back to school for physical therapy. Moved out to New Hampshire. Actually, that's where my ex is actually how I came out to New Hampshire. But so found myself out here. Now I have two boys that are teenagers. I have a fiance that is amazing and super supportive. He actually owns his own business too, so he kind of understands
Great.
the whole business ownership thing. And he's also on the wellness path that I'm on, which is cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Very big.
For sure. Yeah, it's always nice when you can have a spouse that's like, aligns with not only your fitness goals, but your nutrition, your whole overall view on health and fitness. And it plays a huge role in your teenagers, I'm sure too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time with influence on the kids. So, I mean, I think that's
It's a
awesome.
huge obstacle for a lot of people. The people that are in there close to them in their lives that just kind of get in the way, and it's not to say that they need to remove those people from this. In some instances, yes, you may have to, but I think a lot of times you just need to compromise. You need to find ways to say, hey, look, this is important to me, and we need to make this work.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have a question to start first, because it's the name of your PT clinic is called Eagle PT Holistic Health and Performance. What's the significance of the eagle?
Yeah. So the eagle for me, it stands in my mind for freedom.
Yeah, cool.
It's an American value.
Yes.
And that's kind of something that I really feel strongly about. It also, so in that too, with the whole freedom thing, around the time that I was starting my business was really important for me I was thinking about medical freedoms.
Sure.
And the lack thereof, it felt like. So that was another reason for the eagle. In addition, my fiance and I spend a lot of time on a lake up in Wakefield, New Hampshire, and there's eagles up there.
Oh, nice.
And they always just seemed like these really positive omens whenever we would see them. We would be in these deep conversations about cool stuff, and then there would be the eagle, you know.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of meaning for me, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I also feel like, and I've been thinking a lot about this too, like what are my own values and what are the reasons why I started my business and everything. And one of the things I come back to is like personal excellence, and excellence is the best form of rebellion, and I feel like eagles kind of represent some rebellious sort of vibe.
I love
awesome.
it. Yeah, we do the in a mentorship that I'm part of. There is a oh God, I wish I could remember the name of what it's called, but there's basically a book, and there's a personality, and within every personality there's an animal attached to the personality. Eagle is one of them. Eagle's like the powerful, like alpha type of thing, where they're very confident with their type of execution in business. So I can totally see where you're getting that from, and that's cool. I'm not the eagle. I am I'm like a dove and like something else. Actually, my wife's a dove.
A dove.
Yeah. So it's like it's like peace and like keeping everybody like in harmony, more or less. But I also have like an alpha type of appearance as well. So I'm like a mixture. I'm a hybrid.
A hybrid.
Not everybody has two.
So an eagle and a dove got together and made a deagle.
Yeah, deagle. Yeah,
a deagle.
Yeah. It's weird. But my wife is just the dove, so she's just all about peace.
All right. Yeah.
Yep. So, but it's kind of fun. You can kind of play on it and see how your personalities mix. And a lot of people use it in biz. I'm gonna get the name of it for you. You might like it because it's like it allows you to understand the personalities of your employees as well. So like what their strengths and weaknesses may be based on their animal. It's pretty interesting.
I love the animal symbolism for anything like that, like for the business name. I talk about this all the time with people. I'm always alluding to our ancestors, and humans have gone so far from what our ancestors, how they lived. And I always say all the time, my joke is that all the other animals are laughing at us because they are not, other animals and species have changed for sure, but, they're still living very much with respect to their evolution, and we are not in a lot of ways. So I like that symbolism because we can learn a lot from animals. We really can, if we just pay closer attention to them and really say, okay, that's why they're doing that. Maybe we can, maybe we can take something from that and learn from it for sure.
I love that.
Yeah, it's true.
That's cool. So what led you to want to start your own physical therapy business? I know you were changing career paths there. You went from, marine biology, and then you moved over to physical therapy. What made you drive into physical therapy, first of all? And then you were like, all right, now I want to start my own business.
Yeah. So I wanted to move away from like animals and go into humans. I feel like I can make a bigger impact in humans' lives. I've always cared about health and wellness, so that kind of drove me towards physical therapy in general. I read some book, What Color is Your Parachute or something, a million years ago. That's what told you about your personality and what you might be a good fit for, and it told me I'd be a good fit for physical therapy. So I worked in the hospital system primarily most of my career, whether that be outpatient, inpatient, emergency room, but always in the hospital system. I did do, it was also still part of the hospital system, but I did do home care as well for a little while. So lots of little facets underneath the healthcare system.
Yeah.
So in that, I feel like I kind of entered in after its sort of heyday of being able to put the patient first, it seemed. And, more focus was leaning towards note taking, less time, more time with notes, less time with your clients, your patients, more focus on productivity, more making money for the machine, it felt like. So the quicker you could get people better was rewarded. And it didn't, better just meant like out of pain or get them out the door to be able to go home, because they're costing the hospital money. So I was becoming pretty disillusioned with it in general, but just kept thinking, like I'm almost 50 right now. So like I kept thinking, not much longer, right? Get my kids through college. I don't know. Like, and which is a terrible place to be, because I feel like I always kind of like in physical therapy, I'm going to make a weird analogy, but like Texas is like a really big state. I lived in Texas for a while. So Texas is a really big state. And I always tell people, like, if you don't like some part of Texas, like, I feel like it's weird. Like you got to find some part that you like. So again, physical therapy is like huge. Like I have to be able to like fit in here somewhere. Like, why am I so miserable in this profession? And then, so it was kind of honestly a blessing when COVID came, like a hidden blessing, because things became even more weird. And I felt like, you know, there was less transparency. There was, you know, more like recommendations and things coming from hospitals and from the whole system itself that I didn't necessarily agree with. So I just, you know, there was like, for me anyway, more of a parting of ways. And then, you know, when they finally came down with the, hey, now you have to, you know, take away your medical freedom as far as like, we're going to force you to get, you know, a vaccination and things like that. I just personally was like, okay, let me take a step back from here. That's a big decision. Is this something that I want to go forward with? And I decided not to. So I was actually kind of forced to leave, but I was sort of happy in a way too, because I was like, all right, I'm one of those people that like, come up with a solution as opposed to, you know, complaining about how something is. And so if you're not happy with something, make it better. So I kind of moved into, all right, how can I do that? And actually, I'm really good friends with Marissa, who you've had on here from Magnify. She kind of slid me the book, F Insurance book. Which is,
I was going to ask you about that because I saw some similarities there, because I went through Danny's mastermind and some of the stuff that I saw that you had put like on your website. I'm like, man, this looks like Danny's influence. So I was going to ask you, that was actually one of my questions. So yeah, feel free. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I had no idea how to start my own business, but I knew that I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to be able to give my patients, or my clients, now I call them, the time that they needed, you know, to get better. I wanted them to be able to have the, you know, the time in the evaluation to tell me what was really going on with them and how they were, doing, and, you know, how long it's been going on, everything, you know, get to the root cause of issues. The other thing I think in healthcare, which I felt like I was part of my decision to get out of it, was in the system itself, is that there's a concept of either burnout versus moral injury. Have you heard of that before?
No.
So a lot of people in healthcare say that, you know, there's burnout.
Of
but
course.
Like one of the other ways to look at it is you're feeling like morally injured. Like you see what could happen for people versus what you can actually provide within the structure of the system. And you're constantly forced to do less than for people, right? So anyway, that was also part of like what I wanted to be, like how I'm crafting my business is to be opposite of that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Total sense.
Yeah.
Total sense.
So yeah, didn't know a thing about business. Really, I mean, I've always felt like I've had sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, again, sort of like a rebellious spirit. But I didn't know, you know, how to start.
Did you end up going through Danny's mastermind?
I did.
Cool. How many years did you go
Well,
through?
not the mastermind.
Oh, the
Rainmaker.
Got you. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, he's got a great program. I always speak very highly of Danny. I went through his program for like just over 2 years. And there was definitely very, very important in the growth of our business as well. And like you said, COVID was a blessing. And we say that too. It's a blessing and a curse. But it did ultimately give us the drive to make the transition to the model that we currently have today, you know. And I think without COVID, we might not have gotten that push. It probably would have eventually happened, but it would have taken a lot longer to get us here.
In a roundabout way, it showed us what could be.
Totally.
Basically, is because we had 4 PTs at the time. We had to furlough 2 of them, so I was just chatting myself, and then we were spacing everybody out to comply, right? So now we're like, oh man, this is crazy. We're each seeing one person an hour. And this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is a great day. This is way better. So we were like, man, how do we make this happen for the future? And we had already started the process of breaking away from a few insurances, but we weren't at that point planning on doing the full dive.
Right.
And then that was what made us
For sure.
go head first, which is
Yeah.
really cool. One thing, Kathleen, that you said about you're big on like finding solutions. I think that's huge because I talk about this all the time with people now. It's like everyone's talking about the problems. We're always perseverating. The media, the healthcare system, everyone's perseverating on the problems. It's like, okay, that's great that we're identifying the problems, but let's find some solutions and let's talk solutions, because we're just laying out thousands of problems, but it's too few people are talking about solutions. And I think that that's a big deal right now for the healthcare system is we're really, even with research, we're diverting the money to being like, okay, what's the true problem here? Like, and you see all these articles, inflammation, that's the underlying. It's like, okay, yes, cool, but like, what are we going to do about it? Why are these people so inflamed? And I think that that's a big thing that, a big direction that the whole system needs to go in is like, okay, let's be a little bit more solution based here. Let's still look root cause. We still need to look through the root cause lens, but what are some solutions, like real life solutions that we can implement? And I think
what can we get people to adapt to and
I think that's a huge issue for sure. So I'm glad you talked about that.
Yeah. And I, I think that as you start to kind of go through owning your own business too, you start looking through a different lens as well, right? Like, being a physical therapist and a corporate PT, even just like working in this model is different, right? Because working in corporate PT, you're just like, it's a job. You know what I mean? They're a patient. You're presenting with XYZ. Okay, based on what I've seen the last 5 years, this is how I'm going to treat you, and everybody gets treated the same. But it's totally different in a model like this. And we say it all the time. Like when we were treating patients in insurance, what were we seeing? 18 to 20 plus patients a day. We'll see 6-7 patients a day now. And we're like, man, that was a long day. Yeah. It's tough. It's mentally draining. It's physically draining. And I talk to people that are in the insurance model like, dude, are you serious? You guys are such babies. It's like, no, man, it's real life. You don't get it, man. Like when you're devoting your 1 hour time, undivided attention to one person, it's a lot harder than splitting your time up with 3 different people. It's weird. And I can't explain it other than the fact that you have to experience it for yourself to actually know what we're talking about. But it does weigh on you a lot.
And let's be real, when you're in the conventional and you're writing a lot of notes, as much as notes are terrible, that's easy work.
It's
just time.
It's a time suck.
But it's easy. Come on, guys. Stop. You're saying it's hard. It's not that hard. It's easy really to do. It's just annoying.
That's right. That's right. So, in the fact that you've started your own business is great. I mean, and I'm sure that you've kind of felt some challenges and some struggles since you've done that. You want to speak on some of those challenges and those struggles, because it was about a year ago that you opened, right?
It's about a year ago. Yeah. So I mean, I would say the caseload up and down,
of course,
is a little bit of a struggle. I'm learning from other people that have started their business. It's pretty common. There's fluctuations.
Totally.
So obviously still trying to master the business end of things.
Of course.
It's not my forte. I'm a clinician. My favorite time is spending time with the client and all the other stuff is in fact, just yesterday I met with a bookkeeper who I'm finally like, yay, you can help me with this, please. So, the business end of things, obviously. And then the other thing I didn't really anticipate, but I love that you guys have a little community here now, but I'm by myself. So it's a little bit lonely when you first start too.
I get it.
So
I know that feeling.
That's been a little bit of a challenge, but I'm like, all right, obviously I have the power to change that. I'm like, well, I can build more community in my little business. So I was thinking how could I add, whether it be a meditation, night at my place or something, bring people in, get people in there.
Yeah. And you're building a culture for yourself as well. You want people to feel that. And when they can feel it, they're going to show up, and yes, you're building a community within your spot, but then you're also building a community outside of your clinic as well. So, I mean, there's so many people that we keep in touch with that we'll do workshops outside of here that we love doing because it allows us to, reach more people, as well as it's fun. You know what I mean? When we all get to work together, it's fun. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they're like, man, why do you still treat so many patients? I was like, I really don't treat that many patients, but I've done it. And I feel like a bag of shit when I don't come into work. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, you don't even have to come in. Today's my day off. And I came in, I treated a patient. I did a call this morning, and then now I'm doing a podcast. I enjoy it, I feel like I'm not contributing not only to my business, but I'm not contributing to my community when I'm just like, you know what, you guys take care of it. That's not why I did this, you know? And I know what you're saying, like, hey, I want to be a clinician. And I say the same thing. It's like, I'm never going to give up treating because I do enjoy it. Like, that's the reason why I became a physical therapist. But at the end of the day, you still have to be a business owner. So it's like, you kind of have to balance the two, and the balancing act can be very, very tough for a lot of people, you know, and at the end of the day, like, you do have to be a business owner first, then a clinician second, but you can still have both, you know, you just can't be all one and not the other, you know.
And the community piece, as much as it's for you, I mean, it's for all your clients too, because I mean, we've noticed that big time when we started doing more of the workshops and more of the group events, that's part of healing too. Like, especially post-COVID, so many people didn't get back into the normal amount. I mean, human animals are social animals, right? Like, we are tribal animals, and we are meant to, you know, be deeply engaged in our tribe. And post-COVID, people just struggle to get back to it. So this social disengagement that people are still struggling with is real. And it's until you do that a little bit more, you probably won't fully heal. You won't truly heal, you know, whatever you're dealing with. So it's a huge part of the healing. So, you know, I think it's a good thing to not just think that, oh, this is for me, this is for my business. This is for them too. Like, this is for them to heal. Even if they don't know it, they don't perceive it right away. It's a huge piece of it, and they're going to feel it when you start doing it. So if you did something regular, like the meditation group, you know, once a week, you know, more and more people would come because they would just naturally feel something like, oh, there's something to this, and they'd just keep coming, and then they'd bring some people with them, and, you know, I'm sure it would pick up. Early on, it might be a little slow, but I'm sure it would pick up over time for sure.
Yeah, that's fun. Anything else that you're interested in besides meditation that you feel like your community could benefit from?
I mean, I'm doing what you guys are doing as far as like some strength training classes with some ladies 2 nights a week right now, but
That's
I might add more to that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm into like the biohacking, and I have I actually have a friend of mine that's a functional medicine nurse practitioner.
Nice.
And we want to collaborate and do some fun stuff.
That's it. So you guys could do like, you two could do like a regular health class type of thing where, you know, you come in, you have just a little bit of information, then just Q&A. People can come in and ask whatever they want. I bet people would be enticed by the Q&A with a PT and a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
Oh, I can ask whatever I want.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were just talking about, you know, even just a lot of people are coming to her with like the weight loss questions and stuff like that.
Totally.
So from my perspective with the strength training piece of it, and then she, you know, is trying to steer people a little bit away from just like running towards like Ozempic and things like that. And like, you know, talk with them more about healing their gut and getting their, you know, their bodies more in working order and from a deeper level before just jumping on that. And we can, talking about macros and hitting your protein goals and stuff like that. I mean,
we do that with everybody.
Yeah,
patients and clients.
Everybody. I have to have the protein conversation. Like, oh yeah, I'm eating plenty of protein. Okay, like how much? I bet it's not enough.
I know people hate counting it, but you have to count it at least once to know where you're at. Yeah. And I always tell that to people. It's like, a good idea, I know it sucks, but you don't even know where you're at. You know, the only way you know where you're at is if you're going to count it. You don't have to do it every day. You know, there are certain psychos out there like me that do that, but you don't have to do that. But there's only one way you're going to know, and that's counting it, you know? And I'm going to hate on the people that are like, well, palm this and fucking thumb this. And I'm like, dude, kiss my ass. It doesn't mean shit. Like you're just guessing. It's a guess. Yes, maybe that's great for the general population, right? But like for somebody who's like, no, I really want to lose weight and I want to take this seriously, you are not knowing, you are guessing. That's it.
So I'll add to what Chad's saying. I totally agree with Chad. I love giving people the benefit of the doubt. I will tell you 100%. There's a lot of people listening that just won't do it.
I know, totally.
They just won't measure. That's right. So if you are one of those people who knows you're not going to measure, just add more each meal. Literally, just add more each meal.
And I always people start with the protein.
Start with the protein. We can
guarantee
that on
you your plate, and then
we can guarantee you that you're probably not. I shouldn't say probably that you're not consuming enough. So just add more. Simple. Add more. But yeah, start with the protein for sure, because that'll also help with, you know, overeating and satiation and all that kind of stuff. Super, super important, without a doubt.
So you've done a lot of that with the business. You've done a lot of continuing education as well. I mean, you're enrolled in a fellowship program. Looks like it's the Institute of Athlete Regeneration. Did I say that correct? Yeah, we looked them up the other day. We had never heard of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. So I kind of wanted to kind of pick your brain about that and find a little bit more about what that fellowship's like and what you've gotten out of that, what you're getting out of it. And I know they do other things as well. So I don't know if there's other things that you've done within the scope of their, fellowship program or institute or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when I decided to open my own business, and I wanted to go, performance route, I wanted some more tools in my tool belt. There's like so much cool physical therapy tools now out there. Not like, again, like I've been in this almost 20 years. I can tell you that is like vastly different from when I started.
Totally.
So anyway, I was like, all right, add some tools to my tool belt. And I was thinking about dry needling. I was part of the PT Entrepreneur Facebook group through Danny's group. And so I was able to, chat with people about like, hey, what do you guys think about, I saw people talking about the IAR program for like just doing the dry needling. So I was like, all right. It was being held in Texas. I'm like, is it worth it to go to Texas? And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I actually love to travel. So it's like, that's an excuse to travel.
Absolutely. Sure. Of course.
So went down to Texas, took a dry needling course with them, and was super impressed. The guy teaching it is actually Toko, who is the founder of the IAR program, the whole group. So I asked him, all right, well, what's next? What do you guys teach, and what would be next for me that you would recommend? I told him my background, and he's like, do the CSOMT, which is a orthopedic manual therapy, sports and orthopedic manual therapy certification. So they teach that. So I got in that program with them, which was flying out there for that. It's like 4 different weekend courses where you're doing manual therapy there. So they have like cervical thoracic, lumbar, sacroiliac, extremity, upper extremity, lower extremity. So just really fell in love with the program and like felt like I kind of found my people. I think within your like physical therapy, there's different crafts, right? Like people go different ways to look at people and to heal people. Like there's for the analogy of like, there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's probably a lot of ways to heal people, but like you have to pick one that fits for you and the lens that you look through. And I really just loved the lens that they were looking through. They kept, alluding to their fellowship program too, and all they're business people, right? They're like, oh, and then you can learn this when you're in the fellowship. I'm like, what's this fellowship?
We're going to give
thing
you a
you're
taste.
Talking about. Yeah. So they got me there, and but I was really impressed with all their faculty. So they're a mixture of Shirley Sauerman's stuff. Have you?
I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is? No.
Okay, I thought maybe it was just me. I'm like, maybe because I'm like, again, been a physical therapist for so long, and this was somebody. But anyway, she's been around like a really long time. Movement impairment syndromes. Have you heard of classifications on that realm?
No.
Okay, so she's pretty cool, actually. I'll have to send you. Like, I actually just listened to a podcast. And last night actually with her on it. She's like, I want to say she's like 90 years old now. She's like wicked old and she's still really sharp.
That's awesome.
She's cool. So it's just looking at people through how do they move and classifying, dysfunction based on movement dysfunction. So it's a lot of looking at people, what are their repeated movements and prolonged postures that they're in? And how does that feed into, joint dysfunction and how, which
kind of like a McKenzie approach almost.
What's tight and what's weak.
Yeah.
And then, so her model though is like completely hands off. It's all like, what do you see, and then changing people's movement. But they tweak it a little bit different through IAR, where they add manual therapy to that. And it's like, for me anyway, like made the perfect sense. Cool. So I was like, okay, I feel like and every time I think, like, if you take a course through somebody and you feel like, like energized, like I was like, okay, this makes sense to me. Like it felt really, really cool. So
I think that's an important thing to note too. It's like for people that are listening to this, especially if you're like PTs or like in the, healthcare profession anyway, there's like you said, there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. Even though I've never heard of this person, doesn't mean that we don't do some sort of movement screen, right? But like you said, that one just really kind of took to you, and that one just made sense to you, right? And I think that's the important thing. It's like, Nick treats different than I treat different than Hayden treats, and that's cool. That's what we want. We want the diversity like that. We've talked about that many times. but it's like, it has to make sense. And it's like, not one way is the best way. It's the way that's best for you to understand. Right. So, I think that people need to stop like throwing so much like hate on certain things where it's like,
For sure.
dude, you can't hate that because
For
like,
sure.
I may use one technique out of that whole thing that works for me and that works for my patients, and we all get great results. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if I went step A and then you were like, nah, screw it, I'm going to start at step C. Who cares? You know, as long as the result is the same. So I think people need to get over that shit. Like that's annoying.
Well, and people are doing it, just not. So, for example, like you mentioned, this individual has like a system for it, and you alluded, Chad, to the fact that we've probably done some semblance of the same thing. Just
Sure.
we don't use the same
That's right.
terms.
That's right. That's right.
Same thing with like PRI. Like we had Mike
That's
DeMille
right.
on the podcast a couple of years ago, and he's PRI guy, Postural Restoration Institute, and they have a certain lingo. And he speaks the language, and we're like, wait, what's that mean again? It's like, oh, okay,
I get it now,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I would just call it this, whereas they call it that, right? So
Totally.
and that happens all the time, and that's all fine. But for anyone, like Chad said, listening, that might be, younger in the profession or in school for this type of profession, like start reading this stuff and find what resonates with you.
Yes.
That the concept of something resonating with you is very real. Gut instincts, gut feelings, those are real. Don't disregard those, because if something does resonate with you, roll with it. It's a real thing. And if you're trying to read something because someone else says like, oh my gosh, this is everything, and you're like reading it and you're like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. That's not for you. It doesn't resonate with you. Simple as that. It's a real thing for sure.
Totally.
Those gut feelings.
Absolutely.
But that's cool with the Institute of Athlete Regeneration. You had that. You found your people type of thing. Yeah, that's awesome.
So have you been able to utilize a lot of that in your practice up until now?
Yeah. Yep. That's almost entirely kind of what
Yeah.
I use. I find when I have the best results when I'm
Sure.
using that framework. Again, because I think it just fits with how I think. So yep. That's primarily what I use. Although I do get myself on Instagram and stuff, and I'm like, oh, look at that, and
Yeah,
I try different things.
Yeah, of course.
And
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at
totally-
all.
Well, like Nick said, exercise is all made up. This is all made up. We made up exercise.
And then
You know what I
there's-
mean? Somebody came up with a different variation of it. Who cares? Somebody made that one up before you did.
So I got to tell this story now. So last summer we had a couple college students doing like an internship with us, and one of them was just, you could tell this day he was having like an existential crisis. Like he was asking me very specific questions about clients that at school he worked as a trainer in the just the weight, or not like the team sport weight room, but just the the exercise center for just the general students. And he was asking about this one particular person. You could tell it was a particular case, and he's like, well, how do I know that that's right? How do I know that I'm supposed to do it? I'm like he just kept going down this beating a dead horse kind of thing. I don't know if I can say that anymore because
Sure you can.
feed it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think it's feed a fed horse. Yeah, you can't feed a fed horse.
Yeah.
But so then I just thought, I was like, hold on, man. Like, just remember, whenever you're not sure or anything like that, we made it all up.
Right.
And I just told him this, and his face was like, wait, what? We made all this up? I was like, this profession, the exercise, it's all made up, man. And he's just like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I mean, think about it. Like, we created the society, we created all this. And he was so like taken aback that he was like, oh my gosh, like, should I be doing this? And I was just like, I don't mean it like that, man. But just remember, like, whatever you're doing with that individual is way better than what they were going to be doing on their own.
That's
most
right.
likely.
That's right.
Right. That's why they came to you as a trainer, so it was exactly, he was
Totally.
just like, oh my gosh, what is he saying? But yeah, so we joke about that story all the time now, because I was like, dude, I can't take all these questions right now. We made all this up. I just had to stop the questions and tell them, like, hey man, we made it all up, so make more stuff up.
That's it. That's it. Just make it up.
Yeah,
That's
so
what
it
it
was
is.
it was funny, but yeah, we joke about that story all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you're seeing all these patients in your clinic and you're using these different techniques that you've gained from the fellowship program, is there like a certain type of patient client population that you are like, man, if that person walks in my door, I'm going to be so happy because I love working with that type of patient? Or is it like, I love everybody?
Yeah. I well, I've been working with a lot of power lifters, bodybuilders,
Cool. Nice.
and I do love that.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that to be within that realm. Also, people that are my favorite people are the ones that are open to following the journey that I'm trying to take them on, hopefully,
Yeah.
you know, like, so when people come back to me and they're like, yeah, I was really thinking about my posture and my, you know, my sleeping habits, you know, how I'm sleeping, how I'm moving through the day. Cause, you know, that's kind of the lens that I'm look at it through. And like, those are often the people when they're on the same page as me and we're clicking, like they're getting better. Right. So people that are open to, you know, maybe changing some of their habits. Right. So, yeah, people that are just open to learning about their body, how they're moving, and, the bodybuilders and power lifters are my favorite. But yeah, so it's kind of open for me too.
Yeah.
I don't like exclude anybody at
course,
this point.
of course.
I have, you know, younger people and older people. I have like an awesome 21-year-old that I'm working with right now who's, you know, making great progress. And then I've had like 75-year-olds and
of course.
There's not
Of
really
course.
a super niche down yet.
What's interesting is like when you're seeing all these people through insurance, and this isn't like a knock on any particular person, but when you're doing that and you're seeing 16, 20 people a day, you feel like you're having to move the horse all day. Whereas now when you see people, you know, cash based, they're coming to you out of pocket. It's almost like, hey, you got to pull the reins back a little bit. The horse is moving too fast. So now you're trying to get people to, you know, maybe think differently, like you were saying, or you're just saying, hey, you're doing too much. We got to pull the reins back. You know, so that's kind of a shift I've seen where it's like I'm doing a lot more of that, like getting people to, you know, let's pull back on the reins. Let's refine some of the other lifestyle things. Like, yeah, you've nailed the exercise piece, but let's work on some of the other stuff, you know, or we need to, you know, shift the exercise piece. You're doing too much of one thing, whatever the case is. Whereas, you know, previously you're just spending all day like trying to motivate people. But these people are coming in, they got the motivation. They're like, all right, where are we going? What are we doing? It's like, whoa, hold up. You know, let's get a good hit on those reins first. So it is an interesting shift where it's like you see that and you know, we kind of feel that where it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is different. It's very much a different person that you're dealing with day in, day out. For sure.
Oh, totally. And that's not a knock against, like you said, it's not a knock against insurance. And we're not like trying to, what's the word I should say? We're not trying to like judge people based on the fact that they have insurance or don't have insurance. But it definitely does bring in a different type of person. Let's just be honest. That's the fact. Absolutely. That's what it is. So when you have somebody that's coming in that's going to pay you a certain amount of money, that's definitely more than their copay. They are invested in their health. And not to say that we have tons of people that we saw from insurance that now pay us, you know, out of pocket and they still value their. So it's not to say that. But also in a model like this, like Nick was saying, it's basically the whole health approach, kind of like what you were talking about, where it's like, we can actually spend the time talking about sleep. We can talk about nutrition. We can talk about your training. We can talk about anything, right? We have the whole hour to do that. So like maybe we only do 20 minutes of exercise, but we spent the first 30 minutes talking. We can do that. Why? Because we've reserved the right to do that. And it's your time. You paid for that time. It's not, oh, well, I can't bill for that because insurance is not really a code. I can set insurance for having a conversation with you. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so stupid, but sometimes those conversations can be just as, if not more valuable than the exercise that you've done for that patient, because they're doing all this stuff. They're exercising, they're going crazy, and they're still not getting better. There's probably other things going on in their lives that is not being addressed because we can't have the time to do it 15 minutes. You know what I mean? But we sure as hell have the time for an hour. You know what I mean? So I feel like when that was the biggest thing that I noticed when we went to this model. It's like, man, we've missed the boat so many times with so many people. I feel like a piece of shit because I know that there are certain people that I could have helped that I couldn't because I didn't have the time. You know what I mean? And to be able to sit down and have these like valuable conversations with these people, it means more to me, even if I didn't even touch them, to the fact that they were like, man, that's so awesome. Like you just gave me more information now than I've gotten in the last like 20 visits. This is great. You know what I mean? So that right there makes me feel way better about what I do. And I don't really care what people think, like in terms of like the fact that we don't take insurance and, you know, how people think that we think we're greedy and all this other stuff. Like, that's fine. You can think that. but I can sleep better at night knowing that I can provide a better service to my community, my patients, and my clients.
And at the end of the day, that individual is probably not going to, number one, have the time or the means to come see you, me, Kathleen, for, every week or every month for the rest of their life. So we need to give them the education and the tools to be able to do this on their own till the day they die. And
it's not about the money. It's not. It's for most of these people, they don't even know what the value of what they're getting for their value. Like I have a patient next week that's going to buy another package because that's what she does, and she can't pay me until next week because she doesn't get paid until next week. Now I don't feel guilty about that because I know she's getting her money's worth out of it, right? And she is happy to pay for it. But then you have so many people that have like all this money and they're like, nah, forget that. That's ridiculous. It's like, you don't value your health. I don't want to hear it. Don't call me a month from now and say, oh, I messed up. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And the flip side of that, where we're saying we're not judging anybody or, like giving anybody who won't come to this type of setting a hard time. It's, that type of person that's going through insurance, a lot of times, like the exercise piece is way down on the hierarchy of what they truly need. Like that person needs, hey, you need to go to bed a little bit earlier, right? Your sleep needs to get more consistent. Your nutrition needs to get much better, and you need to start small. Like it's those little things first. You just need to get outside in the sun more. Like those little things, it's like you need to do those first before. That's why we're saying the type of person that comes to us, they're already kind of doing a lot of those things, and it's these tweaks, like I said, pulling the reins differently. Maybe not back all the time, but maybe we got to steer a different direction more so than like, hey, we got to rebuild the whole house type of thing. So that's the reality of it.
Yeah, and you'll see it too. It's like, when people come in for an hour of your time, they're not just getting the physical therapy, right? I say this all the time. It's like, if you're a physical therapist and you're just doing physical therapy, you are providing a disservice to the patient, because there is so much beyond the scope of what we do, but is within the scope of our practice that is so beneficial for people. Like I've heard this guy ramble about functional medicine for an hour while he's working on a patient. And I'm like, this patient's going to leave knowing so much more than when they came in.
Or they're going to be so confused.
Or confused. It could go either way. But there'll be multiple times where we have conversations, and we'll have like, Nick could be working over here and I could be working next to him, and we'll just have this like community conversation about one thing.
It is great.
And it's cool. It's like bounces off, like, and people all get into it and they all learn something. Like I've had patients that will look at me and they'll be talking about something, and then the patient will look at me and be like, did you know that? I'll be like, no, I didn't know that. So we both learned something today. So it's kind of cool. It not only creates the environment, but like I said, it's not just physical therapy. And that's where we get lost in the translation. That's where we get lost in kind of creating this scope of practice for physical therapy that people think of, because all they think of is, oh, you're just going to like give me a massage, or you're just going to like, put stim on me and then just like tell me to do some exercises while somebody watches me in the corner. It's like, that's not how this is. You know what I mean? And if that's what you're getting, you need to go somewhere else. There are plenty of places that take insurance that do a great job. You just have to find that place if we're not a great fit for you. And we have places that we refer to that take insurance if like people, not everybody is financially ready to come into this spot, and that's cool. But like we have places that you can go. But we also know the value that we have for our patients. We know that not every physical therapist is going to take the time to talk about all those things that we talked about, or have the capability to talk about those things, because we take a lot of time and a lot of money to make sure that we know those things for patients. You know what I mean? So it's just what it is, so.
Yeah, I love that I can go intuitive with my clients. Like, I started off like I have a client who has some TMJ issues, and we've been working on that. Then we started working on, breath work. And then it was like, oh, like she's got pain, like her pain like moves and stuff. And she's also like, she lifts consistently. So I'm like, we need to talk. So now, like we had a whole session where we were basically working on sitting, hip mobility, and breath work, right? Because like
for sure.
It all started from her, talking about TMJ, but I really feel like her being able to control her intra-abdominal pressure and being able to brace and breathe properly. And like now she's, like I've chatted with her since, and she's like feeling great after that last session, which you wouldn't have expected from TMJ, that we're like, working on hip mobility and breathing and bracing. But
insurance will take one look at that and be like, nah, this isn't applicable. So
you guys trying to cheat the system.
Yeah.
And we know what you're trying to do. We're sending the FBI in right now. Doing an audit on you.
Yeah, good luck getting authorization for that patient. So it's that's the beauty of this, though. We don't have to ask for permission. We just do, which is nice. So no, I think that's great. And obviously you look like you lift, and I think a lot of that is very transparent and carries over into our patients as well, where it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. And I say that all the time because it's like, if you look a certain way, you're going to attract a certain type of person. I get it. I work with a lot of bodybuilders too, and that's my fault because I look like this. But I also enjoy working with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are my people.
Yep.
Like you said. And I don't discriminate. I love everybody that comes in here. I have 85-year-olds, and then I have 16-year-olds, and I'm cool.
That's
with
why
that.
I work with a lot of models. They're really good-looking people.
Oh man, why do you get all the good-looking people? No, but I think that's great, and I think that that's a huge testament. Like we've looked at your social media, and we have similar shirts where on the back of the shirts it says, "Does your PT even lift?" And I get so many compliments on that, like where people are like, "Man, that shirt is so awesome." I've given so many of these shirts away to people I don't even know, because they like the wording, and it makes people think, you're right. My physical therapist doesn't lift. What the hell is that? You know what I mean? I've had people come to that revelation to me. So I think that's great that you do that, and I think that, that definitely is, it speaks volumes to what you do because you obviously practice what you preach. So,
well, Pete's a fat guy in a khakis and a tie.
Dude, seriously.
With
man.
pizza sauce stains on his shirt.
Oh my gosh. But it's wild. So, just creating more awareness on that, I think, is super important for people because we obviously want the profession to move forward, and it's hard to move forward when we have people that keep on kind of pulling us back, So, yeah, no, I think that's great. I know Nick's getting antsy for biohacking stuff. This is where I
no,
pulling the reins.
I'm not getting antsy. Not at all.
But I know that you're big into that as well. What types of biohacking strategies or what have you been focusing on recently in terms of biohacking strategies, and what maybe are your favorites, and are there ones that you commonly recommend, that kind of stuff?
I think that biohacking's a natural extension from physical therapy.
Sure.
I think it's about working with your body's own natural healing ability. I think it's a loose term. I don't know if it even has a specific definition.
No, I think Dave Asprey invented it. So, he's,
I literally,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I will admit that I have, that was kind of probably one of the, not one starting points, but one of the initial people that I was following for quite a while.
I love Dave Asprey. He's got great stuff. There's no doubt about it. I believe he coined the term. And yes, it's kind of grown into, this monetized industry a little bit. So the term, I've come to the point where I don't totally love the term biohacking. I just think, I don't know, that phrase hacking, like the hacking part is where I'm like,
it's like a cheat code.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're not necessarily we're just trying to work in harmony with how the body was meant to function, But I use the term with people because people are starting to know it. They're starting to hear it. So it's like, oh yeah, no, it's but it is one of those things where it's like, the phrase. But I get why Dave Asprey made the term. It's like, all right, you got to coin something that yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I totally understand it, and he has his biohacking conference and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess more so what lately, what are you trying to work on for your own health? Because again, for the listeners, health is not a destination. There's no finish line. You're working on it day in, day out. And at times, certain times you're focusing on the sleep bucket, certain times you're focusing on the movement bucket, certain times you're focusing on the nutrition bucket. So it changes, So what are you working on lately?
I am always working on nailing down sleep. That's huge. And it's funny when I talk about all the biohacking stuff, I always am reminded I'm sort of an echo chamber as far as what I listen to. And then again, talking with my fiance, we're talking about it all the time. And I forget that the regular public doesn't.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's still not, known that it seems, or by the regular public, that nailing down your sleep is so important. But yeah, so going to bed at a certain time and waking up at a certain time, keeping those consistent, not I use a Whoop strap.
Yeah.
So I really follow
I have
like
that too.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
really I think it's
Yeah.
good to have some sort of metric or measure that
Sure.
that you're following. I don't know, it works for me motivation wise. Maybe
Yep.
it's my competitiveness. But
Nick used to have one of those too.
Yeah, I did Whoop for a while.
And then he had a kid, and then his numbers were all screwed up. So he was like, fuck this, I don't want to wear it no more.
That was part of it. But the other part was that I actually felt like once I stopped using, because that is true. Like I basically was doing like I would get like the 18 months at a time, and the 18 months just happened to be ending. It was like a month or two after my son Theo was born. So, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a break from it right now, because I know like I'm not, my sleep's messed up.
Yeah.
So I stopped using it, and actually I was feeling better. And there could be a lot of reasons for that, but I was feeling better. And I'm the type of person that like, the competitive edge in me sees the number, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna prove this wrong or something like that. So I was getting myself into trouble where I would get caught up in that, or I would go chase the strain number and be like, I'm gonna try to, break a record today, whatever, So I felt like it was getting me into a trap a little bit, so I think there's with all the wearables and stuff, you can certainly, you can have too much of a good thing for anything, right? But, I think it can, some people are the right person for long-term use of it. And then I think other people are good for a short-term where they see trends. Like I saw it with Whoop, for the couple of years I used it, I saw a ton of trends, in terms of like my weekly schedule, what I was eating, drinking, whatever, so those types of things. So I learned a lot from that in terms of sleep as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that it can certainly, I used to be gung-ho, everyone needs this. We got to use this technology for our benefit, and I think it has amazing, power and value, but, I stopped using it, and, I definitely felt like, okay, cool. I'm going more on intuition and things like that.
Yeah, if, that's what I was going to say. Like if you can listen to your own body and you can go by intuition, 100%. And in fact, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't even want to look at it today. Like I want to have a great day, and sometimes you can like look at it and you're like, I've got a red recovery, so
totally.
it's like, all right,
Man,
how
but
much
I feel
is that?
so good.
How much is that
know.
influencing me? But what it did teach me was, the importance of going to bed at a certain time, waking up at a certain time,
For sure.
or meals too late.
Mm-hmm.
So cutting off my meals 3 hours before bed has been really important for me. I don't know if it's for everybody, but has a big effect on my sleep.
Without a doubt.
And then the other thing I'm working on is like, especially, and I was excited for your, like hearing about your workshop with the whole, this time of year and the light and seasonal affective stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But so, getting up and seeing that first morning light, or seeing the light at the end of the day, and where we don't really have a lot of it this time of year. So I play around with the the lights, the full spectrum light, or I actually just bought a Tuo light, TUO. I don't know if you've heard of that. But it will wake you up. It'll be like, it'll wake you up in the morning. And
awesome.
It also like has an awake mode. So after it slowly lights up to wake you up, then it has this like pulsing light that's supposed to be more like sunshine to kind of wake you up again.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm super, I feel like affected by light. So that's another little biohacking tool that I use.
Yeah. I think light is one of the most underutilized tools, just for health in general. I mean, literally your physiology functions based on light. There's even, when we think about something from like a PT perspective, like in orthopedics, tendons are circadian tissues, right? Like they literally they shift significantly at night when the light goes away to recovery mode, to turning over, the fibers that were broken down and build those back up. So you can imagine if your circadian rhythm's messed up, like what's going to happen to my tendons over time, so I think we really need to go back to the basics of, let's just get more good quality natural light in our lives. I think a lot of people could benefit from that. And that's a huge thing with what you mentioned, the workshop. The seasonal depression type stuff, or some people just refer to it as seasonal sadness, just because depression can be stigmatizing, that kind of stuff. But because some people don't feel like the full depression, they're just like, I'm a little, just kind of humdrum, maybe a little more irritable, maybe a little more anxious, whatever the case is. They just have these very low level symptoms during the winter, especially in these northern latitudes, and a lot of it has to do with the light, the lack of light, right? And most people are working during the hours in the winter that the light is out, and then you go to work, it's dark, you leave work, it's dark. So it is a big issue for a lot of people, and that is, it's not the only thing, but it is a big piece of it. So I think the light is super important, without a doubt. It could be a fantastic tool. There's a lot of great companies with the light devices. I'll have to check out that one you just mentioned, the Tua or whatever. But that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, the sleep is a big one. Still working on that too. Our little guy is, he's 17 months now, so he's still waking up like once a night. My wife needs to work on her sleep more because she's the one who gets up with him, because he's still breastfeeding. But it's a real thing for sure. But you work on it day in, day out, try to be better each week. I've been working a lot on lately the EMF stuff, trying to reduce that exposure. So I've been playing around with airplane mode a lot more during the day. For a while, I was just doing airplane mode at night only, and now I'm doing it a lot during the day. It's been kind of getting me in a little trouble because I'll be like, my wife will like text me or something, and she'll be like, "You didn't respond." I'll be like, "What was on airplane mode?" She's like, "I shouldn't be on airplane mode during the day." So I've been messing around with airplane mode during the day when I'm not using it. I have this case. Actually, this is which one is this? The Safe Sleeve.
I have Safe Sleeve.
So Safe Sleeve, really cool. I was at a course in November. It was a muscle testing course. So very, very different for PTs. Won't get into that today, but they one person there had the magnetized ball that is supposed to be going clockwise, and you put a phone underneath it and it starts going counterclockwise. So it completely messes up your radiation. And it makes sense because humans have your cells have a negative charge, right? And the phone has a positive charge. So it's completely going to be the opposite, frequency there. So it can mess with the frequency of cells. And that's mainly why EMF is problematic, is because it's positively charged. It's competing for your cell's negative charge. So there's always this headbutting going on. But Safe Sleeve, someone had the Safe Sleeve. It wasn't me, actually. It was someone else in the thing. And they did the other phone without the Safe Sleeve, and it went from clockwise to counterclockwise. Safe Sleeve, boom, stayed clockwise. So actually works a little bit. Yeah, it actually works.
I have a Safe Sleeve.
Yeah, the Safe Sleeve, I wasn't sure about it when I first got it. I'm like, I don't know if this could actually work. But yeah, I saw the ball go and it just stayed. And so it was really cool. And it as to how accurate that is, it's literally just a spinning ball on a string. But it's magnetized, so
Yeah,
it will be influenced by magnetic electromagnetic frequencies, which is what EMF is. So it was really, really cool to see that in person. But yeah, the EMF stuff is something we've been playing around with, and largely been playing around with it for a while now, trying to mitigate it because of the little guy. Babies have a thinner skull, so EMF is so much more impactful to their little bodies than it is to us and their brains because the skull is so much thinner. So trying to play around with that type of stuff. And then the other one we've been working on a lot is like air purification, that type of stuff. Even in the winter, opening windows more frequently, trying to get fresh air in and out, trying to get the air to circulate. That type of stuff. So those are the big ones that we've been focused on. But yeah, I mean, it's you just a little bit here, a little bit there for sure.
Do you have any other biohacking tech strategies that you've been working on, or?
Breath work is another big one for me.
Yeah.
And I work on a lot with my clients. So just getting people through breath work into that parasympathetic state. The physiologic sigh, the double inhale, exhale.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's one of my favorite. I'm constantly using that one myself.
Yeah. Did you get that from Huberman, or
I did get that from Huberman.
Yeah, because I know he made that. I had a lot of people who don't necessarily pay attention to the biohacking world, and they were like asking me about it. I'm like, where's everyone getting this right now? And then they were all saying Huberman. So I was like, okay, all right, I guess it makes sense. They just heard him. I think they heard him on Rogan or something. But yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that stuff is fantastic, without a doubt. I was trying to think if I was doing anything else. I've been doing a little bit of, I guess I'll say it on the podcast. I've been doing a little bit of just full infrared light exposure. Just no, I know Chad probably does it anyway because he's got the sauna. But I just have the infrared light. I don't have the sauna at home, so just going full.
You got the sauna here. You could always come in on the weekend.
I know. Well, I mean, hey, I could close the door.
You could do it now.
Close the door. Put a sign. Do not disturb.
True. That's true. You could do that.
But yeah, I've been playing around with that a little bit more red light exposure on the full body, unobstructed. Yeah.
I do the infrared light every morning. Meditate in front of the light.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all good. That's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of my morning routine too. I love it, and it gets me going. And I have done a little bit less of that because I've taken sleep to be a little bit more important than waking up a little bit earlier and doing infrared light and sauna, because I would do that. I did that for almost a solid 6 months, like every morning. And I felt amazing. But I'm like, man, I feel like I'm not getting enough sleep though, and I feel even better now that I've been getting that extra hour of sleep, which you thought not really a big deal, but it really does and I've noticed it in the numbers too, with my Whoop. And I had Aura before, and the only thing I didn't like about the Aura was the fact that like I couldn't work out with it, so I'd always have to take it off. Super annoying. But the Whoop's been fine. So, and it's, I know everybody's like, oh, well, it doesn't like count steps and it's not like 100% accurate, but it's what it is. And the trends are going to be the same regardless because you're using the same type of wearable. So I'm fine with it, and it's pretty damn close to the Aura in terms of like my recovery. So I'm not upset about it.
Yeah.
But no, they're a great company.
Sleep trumps everything for sure.
Totally.
I think that's important too. It's like everyone, there's so much information out there. People try to implement it all at once, and you can't do that.
Can't do
and you got to focus. Like I mentioned, like think of it as the buckets where it's, I tend to think of, sleep, movement, nutrition, the mind piece, the mind emotion piece, and then a lot of people will throw in the additional stress bucket where, okay, but the stress could be involved in any of those. So, I'm cool with the stress bucket being there, but you could also just loop it into the other ones. But nonetheless, if you think about those buckets, it's like, okay, what bucket is really, really full right now? And I need to work on that. And then what bucket needs a little bit more attention? What buckets are doing okay right now? Don't need a ton of attention. So you can always be thinking about that as in your own life, like what's pertinent right now and what do I need to work on and work on that. And then, it'll carry over. So using Chad as an example, like he shifted away from the sauna and infrared because he wanted a little bit more sleep. He could go back to the sauna and infrared and at some point and maybe cut the sleep by 15 minutes, but he's still getting 15 extra from what he was getting before, right? So there's going to be overlap and all that kind of stuff. So there's no perfection in this. It's just working on a little bit here, a little bit there. And again, finding what resonates with you. You're going to try something and be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, I feel so much better. You'll try something else and be like, I don't know. Some people were raving about this and I don't really feel much with it. So it's you're going to feel it all. You're going to.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we have one question that we ask a lot of our PTs and trainers. It's basically, it makes you think because it's like, what is the best bang for your buck exercise? If you could only give one exercise to like one person, what would it be that could work for most people?
Yeah. So I want to pick two, but okay.
You can't pick two. You can give the second one after you get the second.
Okay, if I could only give one, I'm really into the Turkish get-up right now.
Okay. I like that. I don't think you got that one yet.
Okay.
I like that. Okay. All right.
I do. I feel like it hits everything, and you can just really scale it. You can just start with the kettlebell armbar, like at the bottom.
Yes. Nice.
You can go up to the first position, and then you're getting the legs involved when you're standing. So I almost all my clients get like some version.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. All right, what's the second one?
Well, it's some form of deadlift.
Oh, okay. All right, like a hip hinge.
Yeah. So because to be honest, probably thoracic up. I'm doing Turkish get-ups, and then below it's going to be some form of a deadlift.
I would say that's the most common one we get is like trap bar deadlift. We get a lot, but it's usually some form of deadlift that we get.
I think hip hinge is one of those movement patterns that most people can't do properly, which is what leads to a lot of issues.
Where everyone's weak.
Totally.
Favorite exercise is the one done right.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
Sure.
That's why I have somebody else do all my programming. I'll always pick the easy one.
Yeah. No, it's so true though. Like I've said this to a lot of people when they're asking like, oh, why is this important? It's like, I mean, our species, the Homo sapiens is bipedal, and we extended from, a quadrupedal species. What allowed us to go from all fours to two is largely our posterior chain, right? Like the backside, and we're training that in the hip hinge. So we should probably keep training that,
That's right.
because if we don't, at some point we're going to creep back to the all fours, which is like, all right, it might benefit us. Who knows? But I don't being all fours is hard. It's hard work. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. All right. We only have one more question for you, Kathleen. And that is, what's one piece of health advice from your experience that you would offer to our listeners today that they could implement?
So I would say that there's probably, as we've already discussed today, like a million things that people can do for their health. So find the one thing that they've been wanting to try to implement.
Yep.
And then one thing that's been really helpful for me is habit stacking.
Mm.
And what I always tell my clients too, so like if there's, if you're wanting to work on balance, pair that with something else you're doing, like you're brushing your teeth. So stand on one foot while you're brushing your teeth, and always pair it with that. Or if there's like if you want to do a little bit of light therapy in the morning, pair it with you're making your coffee in the morning. So find a habit that you're already doing, stack one on that you're wanting to try, a health habit, and then give it some time and see if it is something that you want to stick with and that's effective for you. But it's like, the big excuse for people is like either I don't have the time or I didn't think of it. It's like, all right, I found, for me anyway, habit stacking has been huge, and my fiance is like big into that, and so he kind
huge.
of yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great one, because it pertains to all of them. It's not just like oh, I think it's got to be this, it's got to be that. No, it's like habit stack. It covers all the bases. You can habit stack everything. Yeah. There's a lot of information from, oh man, who's the author who wrote the book about the habits? There's like 2 big books on habits. Not James Nestor. He's the breathing guy. I forget. This doesn't help. Edit this out.
What?
No, I can look it up. But nonetheless, there's a book on it that gives you a lot of real practical examples of. I'm gonna do a quick search. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Where are we at, Chad, on the time?
Oh, my gosh.
Atomic Habits. See, Atomic Habits, James Clear. There you go. Yeah, so Atomic Habits has a lot of it's a great book.
I have it. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, so James Clear, Atomic Habits, great book. I can't believe I didn't remember that name. It's such an easy name. But, yeah, it's got some good real – not just like examples of it, but the evidence and research as to why it's important and why it's beneficial and why it's so impactful. So, yeah, give it a check. There's a lot of other books here I'm seeing as a quick search. So, I mean, there's plenty of them. But James Clear. James Nestor is a great one, too. He's got a book on breathing. So go check that one out as well.
Yep.
I love it.
Nose breathe.
Yeah. Cool. No, so before we finalize with everything and we get all your information on the podcast, I'm going to go back to my animals thing because I had to look it up because it was bothering me.
Okay.
And the eagle. So it's called Take Flight. So Take Flight Learning. It's part of like a DISC assessment. DISC assessment stands for like dominance, and it's like 4 different personality traits. It was a model that somebody came up with who knows how long ago. But now they've kind of done like different variations of that model. And this one's called Take Flight. And the eagle is considered to be the fast-paced and action-oriented person. So it's like the dominant person, kind of like what I was saying before, self-assurance, and they're outgoing, confident about their abilities, and have no problem telling you what they are thinking. So that's the eagle. So just so you want to know. So if you want to add something to your eagle logo, there it is. Yeah. Bunch of birds. I'm the owl, by the way. So eagle and owl.
The owl. Oh.
Yeah, I wasn't the dove. My wife's the dove. But no. So where can people find more information about you, Kathleen?
Yep, I'm on Instagram at _EaglePT, and I have a website, eagleptnh.com.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, anything you want to add? Anything you got coming up? Any type of vision you got coming up for Eagle PT that you want people to know about?
No, I want to keep building my community.
Yeah, love it.
I am going to be putting that a meditation.
Cool.
That's a biohacking sort of thing that I'm into right now. Just getting tapped into the present moment. I do a lot of mindfulness meditation. So
Kathleen's going to come do a meditation night at ProForm.
Yeah,
with
we
date
should
to
do
be
that.
determined.
There we go.
Yes.
You guys will stay tuned. Date to be
Wow, you
determined.
didn't even ask her. You
Nope,
just
we
told
just
her.
decided. Yep, just decided.
That's how it works at the end. That's what we do. No, but it was great having you on the podcast. Great conversation. And if anybody wants to find out more information on Kathleen and her physical therapy clinic, Eagle PT, then I will put all that information in the show notes for you. Cool. Sweet. Thank you again, Kathleen, for coming by.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us in the rack this week. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can also find us online at proformptma.com or on social media at proformptma. And remember, if you train inside the rack, you better be thinking outside the rack.